On this episode of That Kingsville Podcast, Mayor Dennis Rogers joins us via phone. We're talking storms, successive storms.
There was rain.
There wasn't rain.
Jazz know there was rain.
Yeah,
But it was an enlightening conversation.
Gary,
Don't.
seriously,
No.
of course. Come on. We recap open streets.
Even though they're closed.
And they're closed, but they're open for people to walk on.
Right.
And then some council news. Some things got approved.
It's garbage.
Garbage and lighting.
Yeah.
And then Kevin teases us right at the end of the episode with some content regarding the new school and attendance and future capacitization. So, yeah.
It's a big word.
Capacitization.
Did you learn that at KDHS?
I believe I did.
Was it in a portable?
No,
it might be in the future.
All that and more on this episode of That Kingsville Podcast. That Kingsville Podcast, proudly brought to you by Kingsville Brewery. Stout season is upon us. Packaging for this year's batch of stout happening as we speak. Find it at Tap House 127 or the Kingsville Brewery Beer Garden starting now. I think we still got a little bit of time left for the beer garden.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So make sure you get down there and have a couple of...
It's going to be a warm, long weekend.
It is, I know. Looking forward to it.
Great beer drinking weather.
The Three Dog Poutineery was down there for a while. Not sure if they're down there again this weekend, but check the website, kingsvillebrewery.ca, or their social media for all the information. Thank you, Kingsville Brewery, for sponsoring That Kingsville Podcast. Welcome to That Kingsville Podcast. I'm your host, Dave. That's Kevin. That's Steve. Guys, summer over.
No, it's not.
It's almost over.
No,
okay?
it's not. It's like 4 weeks. We're not ending this prematurely. No way.
But when the kids go back to school, then it's like,
That's their summer vacation. That's not summer.
Yeah, very true. But with the cold snap that we've been having lately.
It kind of feels like.
Yeah,
Yeah, look at the forecast. It's going to be hot. They're going to cook in those classrooms next week. There's roasted children. Well, no, I'm talking what we used to know as home economics. No, seriously.
They're going to cook in them.
No, we unseasonable after those severe thunderstorms, which we'll get to a little later in the episode. Like crazy weird cold snap, like fall like weather. It just like I had to get hoodies out. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The end of August and talking to a bunch of people over the summertime, universally been a cold, unseasonably chillier summer for us here. And you hear about forest fires and Quebec and northern Ontario and heat waves in the southwest U.S. and into the Midwest U.S. and it was pleasant for us here.
I cut my grass every week.
Yeah. It's
like usually I get a nice shade of brown.
It's kind of been rainy season.
For the most part, yeah, you can count on rain every 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
For the duration of the summer, but
it's really crappy for wanting to take the doors off my Jeep. I haven't taken them off all summer.
No.
Well, it's kind of a job. And if I'm going to do it, I like to have them off for a couple of days.
Well, sure.
It rains every other day.
Yeah, it kind of does put a damper on the situation.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks. I get one. That's one for me for today. There's going to be lots of puns today, folks. Topic of discussion. So, open streets. How many open streets did you guys make it to? That's okay if you say one. That's fine.
1.
I think 3, 2 or 3.
I made 4. And unanimously, incredible turnout for all of the ones that I attended.
Because they knew you were there.
Yeah.
You're a draw.
That famous guy, the big fat guy who talks on a radio voice on a podcast. That guy, yeah, he's there. Well, we were all together for the first one, right?
Yes.
So we all attended. We did the social media, and the wives were running away from being in our social media. But it started out with a bang. That was well attended. I went to the next couple. From what I understand, the open streets that was held in Cottam was well attended to the point where we discussed in previous episodes that they sold out of food and beverage. Like, that's incredibly encouraging and exciting to hear that, with all of the criticism and the drama around open streets to see that many people attend it in this revised kind of schedule.
And let's be fair, some of those criticisms came from this table.
Oh yeah.
But on the flip side, I know we're all big enough that we can hold our hands up and say, hey, you know what? We got this wrong in some respects, and good. But you'd mentioned prior to air that this last one, that just the volume of people.
It was maybe just my perception through beer goggles. I don't know. We do have breweries uptown, and it was a great day. Like well attended to the point where, from my perception, it appeared to be the busiest one. But there was a couple that I didn't attend. Maybe they were the busiest ones, but it would be interesting to see if there was any way, shape, or form that we were able to collect some data for attendees, just a general head count or the best we could. But in all the different sections of town where there was activities, like there was children's activities at the Carnegie Center, or there was arts and crafts, or that themed night activity, always a crowd around, always people in that area.
I think if you just did a quick survey of some of the business owners that were open, the restaurateurs and stuff, they'll give you the unofficial feedback as to which night was the best. But it's like anything, right? In moderation, it's going to thrive.
I think Sam Zad did that study last year, so maybe we could compare his findings to the most recent findings and see if it's been an increase.
I would argue that, or not argue, I would agree it probably is an increase. But yes, maybe we could reach out to Sam, and maybe because he did collect that information. But anyhow, I hope though, Town of Kingsville's got their website, have your say, kingsville.ca, where they're looking for the public feedback. So they're collecting public data, which is allowing council to make decisions via this website query survey. So I did have a chance to speak with Councillor Gaffin one open streets. It was the Christmas in July. He was crossing guard to make sure that the $1 million electric train didn't run over individuals. Doing a great job. Tony and I had a wonderful conversation, both overjoyed and elated that there was that much activity and attraction for what we were still kind of in limbo of. Is this something that we should continue on only a couple of months prior? And for my criticism, because I openly criticized, I thought that there should be more of a schedule, but I think I do have to retract that initial feeling about, hey, how much of this, like too much of anything is not good, right? So having a scheduled, refined schedule, or I should say a themed schedule that has different events and different attractions for families and different individuals, I think worked well. I think that the one in Cottam worked incredibly well, even though I didn't attend it. So, I retract my criticisms of, hey, we should have had more of them, but I'm curious to see what the feedback is and how this gets understood and digested.
Did either of you go to the Mill Street markets in Leamington?
No, did not.
So we went to one, and it was fantastic. And it's a different setup. So it has its advantages being a smaller street width wise. So it seems like it's busier than what our open streets in Kingsville feels like. But the number of the larger number of vendors, greater options for food vendors, because you can't get into a restaurant easily. So having the option to get street food, several different types of street food, the entire street being licensed was a benefit. I would say I think Open Streets was better this year, but I think Mill Street Market is, in my opinion, the gold standard. That's what they should. I think that's a better street festival,
sure, than
what Open Streets is trying to achieve. But I think the problem with Open Streets is that I don't know if they know what they're trying to achieve.
Well, I think that this year, with them having themed events per week is allowing them to kind of hone in on what was successful and how to continue to plan further events. I did attend a Harrow Open Streets. I was unaware Harrow even had open streets, but I went.
Me too.
We went to one, and it was fantastic. Basically, what's their main street called?
King Street.
Is it King Street? Thank you. From Sanford's all the way down to OG Pizza, that entire length of the street was closed. So you had vendors and shop owners that were open and out in the street and celebrating. And they had it wasn't all the way down to Sanford. It was at Walker Road, Queen Street. So Queen all the way down to OG Pizza, past OG Pizza. So yeah, that block. I apologize. See, it was so long ago. So many things happened. But they had a whole bunch of vendors that came and had tables out and were selling things, and there was crafts and there was things to do, and businesses were open, and it was the livelihood of their community was coming out and supporting it, and it was well attended as well. I think a lot of people are enjoying these types of events, having gone to Mill Street or having gone to Amherstburg or Kingsville ones and wanting that kind of an atmosphere.
We did go to an Amherstburg one. Well, it was the Canada Day one. Mm-hmm. So it was probably on a larger scale. And again, geographically, each one has its challenges, obviously. Amherstburg has probably the best sort of ability location-wise, if you will, right along Dalhousie, because it's basically park to park.
Right.
And a number of businesses that can really thrive. You've got an ice cream shop. You've got a couple of restaurants and bars and stuff. So
the Legion.
They have that, yeah, and the Legion. Yeah, they have that advantage.
Yeah.
With Kingsville's, and again, and I know what Kevin's saying as far as Mill Street Market being the gold standard. With Kingsville's, though, it's like it's an ever evolving thing. I mean, Migration Festival isn't what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They're constantly, I think, looking at the feedback and taking in consideration what we can do. When they first started as a night market in the parking lot, that was exciting. It was something new and different. And maybe they take what really worked there and what's really worked here and Mill Street, and who knows, maybe there's not an amalgamation, if you will, of those ideas, but the fact that, there's so many of them that you guys have seen did so well. And you know what, again, it was just, regardless of what the events were, it was so nice to be out and see so many people out. People you hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah.
You kind of catch up, you pass, you have a chat, and then you move on, and then you bump into somebody else. So even if you're not necessarily looking to attend to visit any businesses, you just want to go out and see people again. Mm-hmm. That's a great way to just get out, see them. Hello.
We spent each open streets with different individuals. Like, yeah, we ran into you guys a couple of times, and obviously all three of us the first night, but just passing through town, you see somebody and then you're like, oh my gosh, we haven't caught up in a couple of years, kind of thing. So it was really a great way to reconnect and network and whatnot, but it was something positive to do in the community in those summer months, right? Hogs happened. That was a great event. Unfortunately, didn't get to see all the bikes and whatnot. Another great opportunity for Kingsville to shine for what we have and be welcoming people into the community. So if we can keep fostering things like this, and if we have to refine things a little bit and change it how it is to continue to have it grow and be attended, then I'm sold.
And let's be honest, they didn't exactly have the best weather to work with. It seemed like every Saturday started off rainy or had a rainy period. Yeah. Yet I don't think any of them. Last weekend was the only one that did not.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think any of them got canceled or rained or anything. They were able to go ahead with, and you know what? Yeah. I will
start on one.
Okay, fine, but you know what? I will credit the town and the volunteers for that, because they didn't give up on it. They didn't just say, "Oh, the showers, let's," they had the stick-to-itiveness to really go ahead and paid off.
And still well attended, even though there was that delay, right? My daughter having been working on each of those evenings and working at a restaurant down, like it was a bit shell shock, right? Like that volume of people that come through in an evening, it's great to see, but it's that kind of misunderstanding of, this is what a rush looks like kind of thing. So she learned a lot.
I almost wonder if it'd be better served just on division and closing more of division. Like if you went from Main to Mill, and maybe have some stuff happening at Lions Park and have people going into the Carnegie and take advantage of the gardens in front of the OPP station. And
well, I would say no, because most of that congregation and most of that socialization happened around food and beverage areas.
Yeah, but then have vendors.
Yeah, but you've got the businesses with the patios. You've got how many? Four or five patios that are right along Main Street.
Yeah.
And
then you're right, and I get it, but you'll have more traffic, right? Because you'll have all of the traffic that's already sitting at those patios. You're gonna have people walking on sidewalks on either side. It's not like you get rid of the people because you have an open street. But you're also creating another area where they could be.
Yeah, that's you know what? Honestly, maybe that's the format for one of the evenings and see how it works. Right? Again, if we're continually evolving for positivity, right? The only other downside about yours is now you're in front of residential houses. If you're on Division,
are you? Where would you?
Are you talking Division North or Division South?
South.
Yeah, so there's a couple.
There's a couple of residences.
Is there a couple?
Yeah, there's a couple just past the Carnegie.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Three, I think.
That would be fair to them. Okay.
Right. So not to
No.
That's the one on the corner of Pearl. So.
Yeah. So hey, from what we understood, the Highland Games went well. Hogs for Hospice went well. Open Streets went well. We got Migration Fest in whatever format it is this year, and then we've got Santa Claus Parade, Fantasy of Lights. Canada Day went well as well too.
Yeah.
That was rainy. They did the best they could.
All in all, a pretty successful summer that's still not over. One other thing too that's coming up, I believe I saw on the sign September 17th is the Terry Fox Run locally.
Terry Fox Run, yes.
So that's something that people can.
I'm sure there'll be some fundraising around that. So.
Yes.
All right, let's make a phone call. Joining us on That Kingsville Podcast via phone interview, Mayor Dennis Rogers. Dennis, thanks for joining us again on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys.
Dennis, it's been an eventful summer for us, eventful year for us, right? With the storms and the weather, I'm beginning to think that maybe there's a target on Kingsville.
Yeah, this is number 3, so it's been a busy one. Unfortunately, our residents have had to deal with some stuff that more than they really should. So it's the honeymoon's definitely over, and we're knee deep in it. But I can tell you we got a really strong team, and unfortunately, we've been well rehearsed at this point for steps to get things in place, and and start helping the residents right away.
So Dennis, we and just because there's the odd person who may listen to this, in the future for some unknown reason.
Right.
So we're referencing storms that happened about a week ago from the day that we're recording. So it was last Wednesday and Thursday. That's August, 23, 24, I think.
24.
So, and over those 2 days, combined, Kingsville received roughly 8 inches of rain.
8 to 11.
8 to 11, yeah, depending on where you're located. Significant flooding across the region. So, Dennis, for yourself, maybe if you don't mind, can you walk us through how, from your point of view as the mayor, the response looks? When do you start getting information from administration, and what kind of updates do you receive as response kind of ramps up and continues on over a day or two?
Yeah, so I think usually, historically, now that we unfortunately have some historical data, usually when the power goes out right away, like I'll get a notification. Usually the CAO and myself are speaking kind of right away, so I can tell you through that. storm, we were speaking, I think it was 3 or 4 a.m. Once we kind of realized there were some power issues. And then I know from that point, our CAO will reach out to usually our fire department, our fire chief, just kind of an update and kind of, what's going on. And then, we kind of just assess it from there. So usually it's pretty quick.
So what does that next morning look? What did it look like? Let's take it chronologically. So Wednesday morning. Now Wednesday was the day that we got the majority of the rain in Kingsville. Wednesday evening, a lot of flooding. So the next morning, obviously, everyone wakes up and they see a lakeside park that's, substantially full of water. The parts of Cedar Island are underwater. 50's basically shut down.
Gone.
So, what starts happening as far as planning, discussions about, resident safety, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So that morning I can tell you through, I spoke to our CEO, John Norton. I think it was around 7 a.m. At that point, he had an update from the fire department, because unfortunately our fire department had been dealing with, a couple items at that point. He was actually driving around himself, just kind of checking out different areas. So at that point, I kind of got on the road myself, checked a couple things out. We stayed in contact via phone, and then just started getting a plan together. Public Works, obviously, they had been out in the evening and been working through. She kind of updated me as far as, where we're at on the Public Works side, where we're at on the water side, where we're at on the fire department side. So at that point, we convened with our communications department to make sure that we were getting, messages and messaging out to our residents, and then obviously formulating a plan for the rest of the day.
So after that initial impact and the initial triage plan, if I may call it a triage, because that would be the best, I think, to describe it. What's some of the feedback that you start receiving through town? Like how is the town folk communicating to you and administration about the needs of town and what's happening?
Yeah, so we stay in contact with our communications department. I know Terry will do a number of updates throughout the day, and as kind of things assess, and kind of my role within this is really, as well as council, as anything we kind of hearing from residents, concerns, but just really confirming the messaging coming from town is, if it is an emergency, please call 911. Confirming the point of, if your house is flooded and you have to get out of there. The arena is a place for you to go to, be able to warm up and charge your phone. Reiterating the point of, messaging of, basements flooding. Like some people don't realize is, there can be some big hazards in your basement when the water reaches a certain level with your electricity and your natural gas. So really drilling home that point. And then just, as the day goes, just kind of updating. And the unfortunate part is, we received more rain the next day. So at that point, it's really just, confirming residents that, we are digging into items. The unfortunate part is a lot of the times you've got to wait for the water to go down just to figure out kind of some of the issues that we have. But really just send residents the resources and different information and spots that we have just to help them the best that we can within the situation.
And as you referenced, the next day we got another storm and rain, and we actually got in Kingsville a little bit lucky where we didn't get the strong winds that some of the other areas got. We still had a bit of wind, but we didn't. There were 2 tornadoes in the area, and they kind of went on either side of us. So
split us.
Yeah, that's. I guess if you get 6.5 inches of rain the day before, you got to count your wins when you can.
Yeah.
But then then we're kind of back in it, right? Because the ground is so saturated at that point. There was such an unprecedented rain the day before. Now we're adding another 1.5 inches. Yeah, that was kind of the day where everything fell apart for County Road 50 in Cedar Island, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, it was a culmination of both the days. Like I know when we were driving around the first day, there's, some washouts on County Road 50. There's even some washouts on County Road 20. One story I can tell you is, that first day is our fire department actually had to take a boat to one of the houses just to get some people out of there. And fortunately, our CAO was kind of met them there and got them in, and the Grove Hotel stepped up, got them a spot for the night. But there was, to be honest with you, I've never, I grew up in this town. We moved back 10 years ago. I've never seen this much water over roads and parks and ditches, you name it. So, and then the second day is, that's the unfortunate part is, for our residents who dealt with that water on the first day and were proactive and were pumping out their basements and cleaning and gutting and get everything out of there. And then for them to flood the second time, it's, I know it was a breaking point for some of our residents. It's, it's one of those things for it to happen once, but then the second day again is, that's something very tough for anybody to deal with.
We hear these terms, 1 in 100-year storm and everything like that. When events like this happen, does that change the approach of the municipality? Do you say, okay, you know what, this is a 1 in a whatever, we handled it as best we could? Or do you look at it and say, okay, we've got to make sure that when this happens again, or if this happens again, we need to do these things differently? What's the approach like?
Yeah, I think it's a balanced approach. Anybody that kind of knows me now is I'm always kind of, let's find the middle ground, the compromise wise. We have to, understand the fact that this was a tremendous amount of rain and more rain than we've seen in a long time. And rain that came at a point where, the water table is pretty high leading up to, like, it's been a pretty wet couple months. But the other half of it is, we have some opportunities there and things we can dig in as far as infrastructure. So, my brain goes to, the conversations I'm having on the back end is, what can we do, investigations we can do, plans we can do moving forward. So I know, infrastructure, like an assessment and a plan is something we're going to be discussing at strategic planning. So I think now, I'm hoping it's going to be, bumped up more of a priority and a priority kind of moving forward. Not that it wasn't before, but, really there's an assessment that we can do that, we're just starting to get the groundwork and getting information on, and subject to council approval, of course, where, we do assessment on, on our water needs as well, our sewer needs, you name it, and then starting to get our brain around, just on the hydro side, right? So, we have Elk and we have Hydro One, and I think we all know the, opportunities that we've had, with our power over the years. So now, what are some things now, conversations we can have, who we can advocate to, who we can delegate to, what are, do we need to put a resolution from council, and who do we send it to? Do we got to start talking to, IESO in addition to, the Ontario Energy Board? So, that conversation is starting to happen on the back end. And then, we're looking for council. The next step then is obviously for council to approve it as a priority. And then for us to move forward with the plan. So yeah, it's, we understand the fact that it was a lot of rain, but, the end of the day is, we can't just, wish for it not to happen again. I think this year has proven that these events are happening more often, and, the 1 in 100 year is, that's what we plan for. But, everybody talks about climate change, and to me, I'm not going to blame everything on it, but, I think everybody's plans have to change, moving forward. And, our residents deserve that, right?
Obviously, there's been some frustrations over the last couple of years with the hydro and the power outages locally, but I don't think any resident can really, they can complain, but not be surprised that the power went out like it did during these storms.
No.
I guess if you can, this is an opportunity also to quickly maybe just shout out to the crews and everyone else. I know it was, someone connected with the town locally that did kind of praise the local crews and firefighters and everything like that. What, how big was the role? What are we talking as far as like person hours and stuff like that they put in over these couple of days?
As far as our staff, you're saying?
Staff, ELK, Hydro One, that you're aware of, firefighters, everyone that kind of obviously this was not a normal day for them. It wasn't a 7 to 3 or 9 to 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
What are we looking at for person hours?
Yeah, well, the exact numbers I don't have, but I know, as far as our staff, water, fire, public works, they were working through the night, into the morning, into the next day. Both days continue to work through the weekend. I know Elk and Hydro One that they brought some people from contractors from the outside to come in and help. Yeah, I also know that's been the case for all three of the storms now. So it's been all hands on deck. To ensure that we're fixing what we can. That's one thing I can tell you that is great in terms of the feedback and communication we've had from Elk and Hydro One is they realize if they do need help, they haven't hesitated to reach out. So that's that part's been great. In terms of actual numbers, I don't have, but I know it's been around the clock until it's fixed.
I'm not sure. First, two different. I think you rolled two different points into one because I do think that
I do that sometimes. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But I do think that talking about response is one thing, and you're absolutely right. I think that response was fantastic, and this is absolutely no criticism to the response and the hard work of them. But I'm not sure that rain should knock out power. And
I think it was more than just rain, though.
But there wasn't high winds the first night when we had the longest power outage. We had high winds the second night with the shorter power outage.
Oh, I don't know. I'd argue that point based on just hearing it lashing against the windows of the house. I mean,
it's heavy rain, right? I think that if you look at the wind gust numbers at Windsor Airport, because that's the closest Fireman Canada measuring station, you'll see that the sustained wind gusts were lower on the Wednesday night into Thursday than they were into Thursday into Friday.
Sure. Okay.
Anyway, I feel like that saying it that way gives Hydro One and ELK a kind of a free pass in this one. I'm not sure. I do think that Dennis is right that, and not saying you agree with me, Dennis, but talking to the IESO and talking to the Ontario Energy Board is probably prudent things, and that this storm is probably something that could be pointed to as, why do we have power outages? Why does it seem like it's normal for there to be a power outage every single storm?
Okay.
Which,
for sure. And
or without a storm.
Yeah. So, Elk came and delegated to council, in July, right? So they brought in Integris to kind of help them along the way, and Integris gave them some recommendations as far as investing in infrastructure, increasing their service level, and there's a new board there with Elk. Our deputy mayor sits on the board there, and there's a strong voice there, and I know they're continuing to move in the right way, better than we have historically. But at the end of the day, is we have to push and we have to advocate for investment in infrastructure and increasing service levels. So one thing I'm understanding, and I'm going to steal this from our deputy mayor, is I don't really speak hydro, but layman guy like myself, what I'm understanding is we have a main line that comes into our town, and then there's only one switch for it. So what we actually had a call with Hydro One today, and I'll elaborate that on in a minute, is that other municipalities, actually Harrow just got a second switch put in. So what it allows is when that line goes out, it allows you to switch over so that you're not going to lose the whole line. And for us, that is kind of what Elk has established what they need, because it is Hydro One infrastructure. So that's what we're starting to advocate now for Hydro One to fix in terms of, where it is on the priority list, who we got to talk to that's going to know more about that, what the process is, what the timeline would be. So I know for that's kind of our number one thing that we're pushing at this point, just to kind of get that ball rolling. And then obviously from there is, new poles, new stations, you name it.
Yeah, I think on a future episode, we did ask Deputy Mayor Kim DeYoung to join us on tonight's episode. Unfortunately, she wasn't available, but I don't think that we're done with the ELK Hydro One Town of Kingsville conversation. I think
that's going to be electric when it happens.
Oh no,
love you, Steve.
Sparks will fly.
just keep them rolling.
Yeah,
power through.
So that unfortunately, that was one of the unexpected failures of our infrastructure through this event. The other being that, unbeknownst to most of the town folk, through the course of the Wednesday night storm, the town lost water pressure. So something occurred somewhere in the system, and the town had a drop or loss of water pressure, which unfortunately affected a large amount of town people with some of their sump backups. I'm speaking from personal reference here, where my basement flooded because I had a town water powered sump backup because I know that our power grid is not reliable, and invested that way. So my question, Dennis, is what's the town's responsibility with Union Water Service system, and the investigation into what happened, and how are we approaching to make sure that doesn't occur again?
Yeah, so essentially the water tower lost pressure during that first storm. So there's, obviously communication from Union Water to the water tower, and something happened during the storm, and we lost water pressure there. So I know once we kind of found out about it, we've established it as a priority to find out what happened. So, it's something that I'm told doesn't usually happen, it being an anomaly. So now the goal is to find out, through A to Z, what did happen, why it happened, and then obviously put steps in place to ensure that it doesn't happen again. So not to give you the most political answer, but to me is, we still don't have, we don't have all the data, and the last thing I want is to speculate on what happened. But, those people that know me is that, I'm not going to BS you. Once we have the answer, we got to put steps in to fix it to ensure it doesn't happen again.
Dennis,
because I know for us,
sorry, go ahead.
For us, like the last storm, our basement flooded, and, I had people preaching to me like, get the water pressure pump, which we did, right? Which I know a lot of residents are doing. That's your backup if the power goes out, right? But you never anticipate the water pressure going. So, to me at this point is, I'm told it doesn't usually happen. It is an anomaly what happened, something that happened within the storm, but we got to find out. We're digging into why. And again, ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Do you think it's a mechanical issue or a manpower issue?
Again, I don't want to speculate, but as of now, I would assume it's a mechanical issue.
Okay. So on that, to kind of round out this discussion, because we can talk about, hey, how much people lost and whatnot. How is the town taking note of the percentage of the town folk that suffered basement or significant losses? Let me rephrase that, because I think that would be valuable information with regards to disaster reporting and possible relief from the province or the feds, if in fact this was something that was severe enough. Like I would just from my own two eyes and my own assessment say that 30 to 40% of the residences in the town of Kingsville proper look like they have piles of basement baseboards, carpets, mattresses, couches, all out in front of their houses. So how is the town of Kingsville collecting the information, and then what can we do with that in order to, get relief wherever possible?
Yep. You hear me okay? I just kind of switched.
Yep. Still got you.
Here. Just want to make sure I'm not echoey here.
Still got you.
Good?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I know, so as far as on the town side, we, for us, any damage, stuff that we look to as far as reporting and getting funds and disaster funding, it's only money that the town spends as far as town property, town staffing, overtime, you name it. So this is something now that we've looked into for the third time. And kind of the stipulation is for us to really get funding. We can apply, but most of the time the cutoff is about, I think it's 2.5% of what our tax base is. So, the town would have to suffer about $500,000 of, incurred that in costs for us to even apply for funding. So obviously that's unfortunate.
I think there's several neighborhoods that sustain that.
No, but town expenses.
I know I'm being facetious.
Yeah. So again, I'm just speaking on the town side at this point. Yeah. So, one thing we have done is, we've spoken with other mayors, we've spoken with the county, is there conversations that we can have, maybe that we can be able to apply together, just for the future. Because at the end of the day, this is happening more often. And for us as a town, maybe it's not, $500,000, within one, but maybe if that's something we can accumulate over the whole year, then maybe that's a different story. So I know we've looked into, we've had conversations with residents as far as, insurance stuff and stuff being able to cover through the town. It just doesn't work. It's not applicable, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are different subsidies and disaster stuff as far as from the province that the residents can apply for. So I know we're kind of digging into that. I know there's a couple, for the life of me, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm happy to share that once I do. So, it's not the best answer, but it's one of those, as far as insurance wise, the town doesn't cover the residents as far as that, and then we fall below the threshold for the provincial disaster relief.
Well, Dennis, any of that information, as soon as you find it, you've been communicative. I got you on social media, obviously, and you were making videos and sending out information again as quick as possible. So yeah, given those sets of circumstances, homeowners insurance, that is ultimately your responsibility for coverage and whatnot. You're being as communicative as possible in order to get the messages out about what's happening. So, I know there's a lot of people that are frustrated, and tensions are high. And I know yesterday when we had a little bit of rain come through, my anxiety kind of peaked a little bit because the generator that I bought to back up it wasn't in yet. So I was like, oh my gosh, is this going to be another thing? So as much as you're communicating and as much of that information as you can get out to the public, I think that'll help calm and ease some of the tensions that are rising. And obviously, we'll just have to continue to work towards building plans, both municipally and then personally, in order to combat or prevent or approach events like this. Because as you just said, they're happening more and more often. We've had, in the course of 1 month, 3 historically severe storm systems that have done massive damage in our town, which is outrageous.
It's been a whirlwind first year for Dennis.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. Again, the end of the day is, for us is, when this does happen is, I really got to commend administration. So if you look across these, when these things have happened, like, our administration's been there, help support, like, we've added garbage days, we've added, yard waste days. I know, our team, they talk to our waste collectors, and now for the next 2 weeks, you're going to be able to pretty much put anything out at the curb, right, for them to pick up. So, we're trying to, be a resource and helpful where we can, for our residents. Unfortunately, there's a gap on the financial side, but, to us, it's things we have to look at to ensure, not to put our residents within that situation again. And, I had a conversation with a resident today, and, they're looking at generators and looking at all that. They love our town, love where we live, love everything, but they're, half the neighborhood's buying generators now. To me, I take that personally, right? Like, we grew up in this town, and that's not, that shouldn't be how it is. So, there's going to be some fight, coming from me and push for us to get some answers and advocate where we can. I think it's, this is one of those where, I hate to saying the straw broke the camel's back, but, now we're at a point where this is a basic necessity, right? Like, water and hydro, those are basic necessities that people need for life, right? So, we got to, 1, ensure we're doing our job, 2, ensure that those that provide that are doing their job. And then, number 3, make sure we're communicating and helping and supporting our residents. So, infrastructure, right? So we, again, I think since the election, I've been talking about our infrastructure deficit, and what we need to do to kind of bring that back up so we are sustainable. Not that we know for sure that played a role within this, but just infrastructure as a whole is, we got a plan. We got a plan for the future. We got a plan for growth. My call today with, Hydro One, which I was on there with our deputy mayor as well, is, Hydro One is saying that our power needs are going to triple by 2026. And their plan, they're putting things in place to have that power by 2025. So there's a couple things that they're doing within, Kingsville and Leamington. They're adding about 50 to 60 switches, which are now going to kind of go through, 5 or 6 different substations, just, for them to be able to offload and deal with the capacity. And then obviously now our next step would us be advocating again is that main line and that main switch. Because again, as of now, that's what we're kind of establishing is our biggest need, just to ensure that when the wind blows or something happens, right, not all of our power is going out.
Well, and luckily you're still able to add those extra garbage days for people.
Why you gotta bring up old stuff? Yeah, I think that's another hour conversation.
Oh, Dennis, that's another episode of That Kingsville Podcast. Anyway, Dennis, again, Mayor Dennis Rogers, Town of Kingsville. Thank you very much for joining us again on the show. Again, good, best of luck. Good luck with the continued efforts for the municipality and administration and the council in order to kind of clean up the mess and prepare for the future. So, thanks again for joining.
Yep, anytime, guys, and just stay tuned for. I think tomorrow I'm going to put up some things as far as disaster relief stuff. So stay tuned for some communication on that.
Great, thanks, Dennis.
Have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you. And I realized that there weren't the high winds, but that lightning was nonstop.
It was
the air was so electric that it could have easily.
Yeah, but then the substations probably aren't grounded properly.
Yeah, and that's
sure.
That's been our prolonged problem. Like the downtown core loses power almost weekly. Why? In normal weather conditions.
Yeah.
There are fundamental flaws in whatever the infrastructure grid / checks. Like what's the road where the
Road 2?
No, the mistake on the lake.
Oh,
is that Park Street?
Yeah.
So my daughter and I were riding on Park Street week before last, riding our bikes, 7:00 at night, just past the Beach House Grill. Bang! Out of nowhere, like part of the power line breaker, whatever switch, just explodes as we're riding our bikes by. Scared the crap out of us. Resident comes out of the building and goes, "Oh yeah, that happens once a week."
Sure. And look, I'm not disputing the fact that there's problems. I absolutely acknowledge that there's problems. We all know how often the power goes out. All I'm saying is, if you were sitting in that storm, you were anticipating the power going out based on the amount of lightning. Like I remember seeing it start just before 11 off in the distance coming, right? And then I ended up looking on the radar the next day and somebody had posted, this thing had a mind of its own. And usually when we get storms, they come from the west and they blow through and then they come again and maybe they come again. This thing didn't move. All it did was sit there and grow and grow. And for 8 hours or so, that's all it did.
Yeah. I just feel like our default thinking that there's a bad storm, the power is going out, is flawed.
Oh yeah, and I
agree with that. All my point is that you had to anticipate in that storm with that amount of lightning, you knew it was going to go. I don't sit there and think, a storm's coming, our power's going out.
For sure. And you're right. That storm coming through, absolutely, I thought our power was going out, and I also thought at the same time it's stupid that our power is going to go out.
Fair enough.
And that's the problem. This is a long, prolonged issue in the town that, we've never had a severe storm to this degree that really puts the spotlight on the overwhelming issue, right? Because we've had fundamental failures in other infrastructure systems that compounded on the power outage and caused massive losses. I know again, speaking just from my own perspective, 30 to 40% of residents had water ingress into their houses and had losses. You drive around town Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even today, there's still fields that are still underwater, lots that are still submerged along County Road 50 in town. In fact, like it is an absolute unknown, unpredictable storm that is now going to just super concentrate because of everyone's frustration about why those failures occurred. And again, you add that water pressure failure because that is what added. And listen, because of the volume of water that came in, the storm on Thursday exceeded my water jet's capacity to evacuate my sump hole. And listen, I didn't suffer nearly the losses that anyone else did. What frustrated me was the power went out again. And I don't have any way to get power. And I didn't have the ability during the day in order to get any sort of backup for myself in case this second storm was to cause more trouble. And I know that a lot of people who had damage on the Thursday morning, at Thursday night, were just crying because you're helpless. There's nothing you could have done.
Yeah.
And that's where now I'm wanting to see that there is some information that's out there. I'm wanting to see if there are government related plans or programs where there's damages that were suffered either via, whatever, right? There's got to be some sort of way that those people that were underinsured or uninsured can get some sort of
or even able to get flood insurance, or because some people can't.
So we're going to cut the episode short, but that's a whole nother good question. Now, because of all the claims in town, are we now in a severe floodplain?
Well, and it's interesting, and no pun intended. I'm not going to dive too deep into this tonight, but you mentioned the fields and you mentioned everything else, and that water has nowhere to go.
Nowhere.
We've talked about this, and it's scary. And I get development, and I get wanting to grow, but again, if this is going to happen every so often, the water has nowhere to go.
Like, for instance, on that, like, minimum parking requirements for shopping plazas, like Zehrs, for instance, like, their parking lot is rarely 100% at capacity, but they have minimum parking requirements that they have to have for that size of a building and that type of.
Yep.
But all that does is just doesn't allow the water to go anywhere.
Right. And you know what?
Except for the sewage system or the stormwater system.
You can make the point. It was a freak storm, and it was. But in Essex, Holy Name School on Fairview, their parking lot is sizable. I would say probably bigger than St. John. Completely underwater, like not just like inches of water.
Libro Bank.
Yeah.
Like, I had to go get mops to clean up on Thursday morning. Libro Bank, their entire parking lot was a lake draining onto Jasperson and onto Main Street.
It's a credit union.
I apologize, sir.
No, but
yes, and it was just shocking to see. But yeah, you talk about expansion, you talk about development. That's more of that type of impenetrable surface that's in town.
Not just on that side, but also on the water taking side, because now we just witnessed that our Union water system's water pressure is for some reason vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we have a bunch of condos coming online soon.
Yep.
that and they've never done water testing or dye samples to see the impact that those condo buildings are going to have on water pressure in the town.
Yep.
And so, we actually, the three of us live not too far from two pretty large condo buildings, and who knows if our water pressure is going to be able to sustain having a water backup.
Right. Oh, and I guarantee you we're dropping PSI.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Because if we have the population of Ruthven added to our immediate vicinity without any additional pumping station that brings the pressure back up from a feed line, we're screwed.
Yeah.
We can talk about this for hours.
Anyway.
It's already been an hour.
Okay.
Thank you everybody for listening.
Wait, do we want to do a couple quick hits?
Yeah.
So we did kind of joke with the mayor about garbage collection. So just to bring everyone up to speed, the county council has voted to. I don't think it's final yet. The town of Kingsville has told county council that they don't agree with the uploading of garbage collection services to the county level. County council itself has decided that they want it uploaded to them. And so now each municipality, a majority of the population of the municipality, of the county, and it's weighted voting, needs to agree that the garbage collection should be uploaded. So, for instance, the town of Lakeshore has the highest population. They'll get the most vote weight of the weighted votes of how that council votes. Tecumseh, Leamington, though, and then you get into Kingsville, Amherstburg, and Essex, and LaSalle are about the same. So if it gets uploaded, then that means that Kingsville Council will have no say whatsoever in the garbage collection service.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we were joking, but it is reality that if something like this happened and the town wanted to add extra garbage collection days, they would have to request it to the county, and then the county would have to approve those additional collection days. There's a bunch of other things that are part of that decision, but the biggie is the town would have zero input on how garbage is collected in the town. Another quick hit, the Kingsville Council voted amendments to the property standards bylaw, which impacts exterior illuminated signs for commercial businesses. So beginning, I believe it's in October, commercial businesses in the town of Kingsville that have illuminated signage will have to turn them off between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., whether or not the business is open. So even if it's, say, I don't know,
Max or
Max
Super 7 or whatever.
Yep,
no,
Circle K.
That's it.
Yeah.
Circle K would have to shut any illuminated signage, not safety/parking lot lights. That falls under a different.
Yeah.
That's not property standards. That's safety.
That's
Okay.
interesting.
So the lights above the pumps could stay on.
Yeah, but the Circle K sign itself would have to turn off.
They're open 24 hours. Can you even turn it off?
Well, so Tim Hortons, right? Like Tim Hortons on Main Street. And McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's, all of them. They'd have to go on timers.
Right.
Leah Maria's.
Well, yeah, CSA.
Yeah.
They've got a light that shines on their sign too.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. That's extreme.
So if you've got like a vending machine, a pop machine outside your business,
That's okay. It's not a sign.
It's not a sign.
Yeah. So
And also in window signs, I don't believe are impacted by this. So if you have like an open sign that's in a window, that doesn't count.
So what about like signs on the building, like above the marquee or
That would
the
be
doorway?
a commercial sign, so that would have to be off.
So how do you know that the business is open for business? Everyone will have to go and buy an illuminated open sign.
Yeah.
That's also a safety concern though too, because if there's no illumination over the doorway, there's trip hazards. Or are we going a little too extreme with this? We're going a little too extreme.
I feel like they're trying to solve a greenhouse lighting issue with asking businesses to turn off their illuminated signs.
That's like that. I didn't look at it from that. I was looking at it like, okay, it's fish fly, season.
and that was the only benefit I could think of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Topic for another.
But the problem is they're drawn to light with the fish flies. So whereas they would like congregate under certain signs, they're going to go under street lights. So they're going to become more of a hazard to residents.
Or coming in your front door.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah.
Come on in, fish flies. It's nice and air conditioned in here.
That garbage pickup decision. Oh
yeah.
Yeah, that's toughy.
Sorry, boys. Summer's been just wild, right? Summer's the storms and the weather.
We still have 23 more days.
I know, but it's been wild so far. So I apologize. I'm a little out of sorts, right? Like,
That's all.
Giving it. So anyhow, thank everyone for all your participation in our wonderful conversation this evening. Please, it is how we're over 200 subscribers on YouTube.
On the YouTube. Hey, do we think our next one we can talk about school capacity?
We did also reach out to.
I have some official population stats that are kind of interesting.
It's another quick hitter.
Are we doing this now?
No, I just want to throw these out there, and then maybe we can discuss them. At an upcoming podcast, because let me just bring, because I want to have the exact numbers, because I did actually
did this, and we did talk about it. We did reach out to
did math
trustee Julia Burgess.
So and Steve, you may be aware of this. So schools have to submit their their student enrollment numbers, and then the ministry will like mark them as official, and then they get posted to the Ministry of Education website. So it's actually delayed. It's delayed by like a full school year. So when the ministry is posting the enrollment of schools, it's actually posting the 21-22 school year, which, if you remember, was about the same time that they were doing the design and tendering out the school.
You're right.
So I thought that you might find it interesting that
get ready, folks.
The Kingsville Public School confirmed enrollment. So the board would have known this at the time that these decisions are being made. The Kingsville KPS enrollment was 440 students, and the Jack Minor enrollment was 535 students. So that's a total of 975 students. Now, interestingly, the new school capacity for elementary students is 1,045 students. So they were aware that they were approving a school that will have only capacity for 70 additional students as of 21-22.
Total 70 students.
So not current enrollment, not the number of students that are going to be going to school this year, but back in 21-22, there was only room for 70 additional students when they made the decision for the school. For KDHS, there was a confirmed enrollment of 675 students. The high school enrollment for the new capacity is 753, which leaves an additional 78 students for high school enrollment. Total. So if these new school capacity numbers are up to date and pulled off the board website. So it's not like these were the ones that were are taken from the reports that were presented when the school was originally being talked about. These are the updated numbers as of what's on the board website a week ago. So I can tell you, just from my estimation, the number of students that are going to go to especially the high school portion from St. John's that would normally have gone to Cardinal Carter that are going to decide to go to the high school instead is going to be significantly higher than 78 students.
Yeah, it usually was.
Right.
Usually was.
So just and hopefully we can, get someone in to talk to us about the decisions when they were being made back a year or so ago, when they were making the plans to build this. But just so we're aware, when the decision was made, there was capacity for 70 additional elementary students and 78 additional high school students.
148 total, and we're adding how many? 240 residences in condos,
counting the 300 residences and the Valenti. And you think,
remember that time we had that discussion, that episode about the school? Remember that time?
Yeah,
remember that time. Great.
That was class.
That was good.
Isn't that interesting, right?
It is. Yeah. In fact, so interesting. I think we're going to recut the intro. Well. Yeah, another episode. We'll reach out. We'll have further discussion about that, because that means to me it's going to be yet another school opened up with portables, much like a couple of the other K-12s that opened up.
Or maybe they look at not closing a school.
There you go. That's the other opportunity. I know where there's one. Anyway, thanks everyone for sitting through this episode of That Kingsville Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Hunt. Thanks, Gary Glass, for production. Please, again, subscribe. It helps us feel better about ourselves and makes my mom really proud of me. And that's mostly important. I know Steve's parents are proud of him. Kevin, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Honestly,
We're both proud of you.
I add, notches. It's like, look at that. We got another subscriber. And then I go and carve it in a piece of wood in my gazebo. Yes.
Keep them up.
17.
All right, stay tuned for the next episode, because there's stuff happening again. We'll get back into the swing of things. So thanks again for listening and watching, whatever. Join us next time.